It's weird.
Well, Antony, welcome, man. We're really excited to have you.
Oh, are we live?
Yes.
Well, that's
No, not live, but we're recording.
Well, it's very good to be with the reality czars because I was billed in some events as master of time, space, and the universe. So here we have the two czars of reality, in addition to the master of time, space, and the universe, and no one knows what the fuck is going to happen. The world could bend in on itself in a puff of logic or illogic.
It's doing it right now, man. It's nuts.
It's like some crazy interdimensional space vortex.
And
Dude, I've been on the hunt for Bigfoot. I'm out in the middle of nowhere up in Washington right now, and I'm pretty sure Bigfoot is interdimensional. If he's out here.
He steps in and out of reality, but only for those true of heart and willing. That's why they can never pin him down or find him, because if people just want to prove that he just folds space and steps out into another dimension. So stop trying to put Bigfoot in a box, people. Stop trying to prove that inconclusively, because if the mystery dies, then so does the joy in the heart of those willing seekers, those of faith.
Dude, that is really true. If we proved Bigfoot existed and then we just had him here, the mystery would be over. That, like, what fun would that be? I mean, maybe a new mystery would begin, I guess, but
just
I like that.
Just think of the things they do. They capture Bigfoot, they put him in a zoo, they inject him with all sorts of crap, they do experiments on him. I mean, who wants that? That would be.
They would definitely give him. Yeah, they would definitely give him the Ronavax for sure.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what? You never know what the side effects of that was going to be. Before long, he'll be known as Smallfoot.
Yeah.
It will be the legend of Smallfoot. So, what's the difference between Bigfoot and Sasquatch?
So I tend to think nothing. I think it's just different geological or geographical locations and just different cultures, myths, and things. But I think they're the same thing.
But is he reputed to be in Washington State? Is that what you're telling me?
He's supposed to be up here, yeah, in the Pacific Northwest.
Mm.
So which one? I guess. I think they're the same one. I think Sasquatch and Bigfoot are definitely both out here.
I think Sasquatch is the Northwest version of the Bigfoot.
Yeah, and the Yeti is out in
That's
Nepal?
Up in tundra,
Yeah, in the Himalayas.
Is the Yeti also called the Abominable Snowman?
Probably. I imagine that's what he looks like.
What's so abominable about him? I mean,
It's slander.
It's not like he can come out of hiding and defend himself and say, "This isn't fair. I'm not abominable." However, abominable snowmen talk. I don't know.
He might be really.
Okay. So when did this become a trend across libertarian podcasts to start
to talk about Bigfoot
and cryptids? Is this because of the guys at Timeline Earth, formerly Fagcast? Did they
know.
Did they start it, or was it already a thing?
Well, we're in the Pacific Northwest, and we're already on a conspiracy bent. Like, our podcast is half conspiracy, half like libertarian theory and whatever else. But I don't know, man. We're having Aaron on tomorrow, which I'm pretty excited about.
Is he into conspiracies?
I don't know. I'm going to ask him.
Aaron's got interesting views.
Yeah, Aaron's an interesting cat, man. I'm pretty excited to talk to him.
I met him at Porkfest. It was one of the least worst things to happen at Porkfest.
Nice. How are you feeling, man?
Huh?
How are you feeling, brother?
Yeah, I'm feeling okay. As you can hear, my voice sounds a little bit scratchy, but I'm fine.
Good. How was Porkfest? It sounds shitty.
Well, the first 2 days were great. Then I got sick and then the rest of it kind of sucked. Well, I might as well have just come for 2 days and then left. All the good stuff happened in the first 2 days. I met David Friedman and had a great chat with him. I met Aaron, I met Bellamy Fitzpatrick, the Green Anarchist. I saw Pete Quinones, and then I guess in the last few days I managed to sell some books, which is always welcome because traveling the USA is expensive. So when you can sign and sell some books, it does actually make going to these things easier. But I can't remember. Well, I can't remember that much of great stuff happening after I got sick. So, unfortunately, it wasn't the best festival I've been to.
Yeah. Dude, Bellamy Fitzpatrick is a really interesting cat. I would love to talk to him. I'll probably reach out to him at some point. He's an interesting dude.
He is. He's got good vibes as well. He puts out a good vibe. I enjoyed speaking to him.
I love his perspective on things. Like he definitely comes from a completely different angle, but and I love the idea of permaculture, and yeah, he's just an interesting dude.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat. I'd actually like to have a recorded conversation with him as well at some point in the future.
So I didn't even realize that you were at Squatchfest this year, man. I totally missed you somehow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was only there for the first night and a day, and I think I came a night early, so I was there for 2 nights. And unfortunately, I had to go really early the next day because there was the big Mises Caucus event in Pittsburgh, and I was invited to speak as that. As it so happens, I was invited to speak the second day, so I could have, I guess, skipped the first day of that. But my travel plans were made when I got the invitation. Like, I guess you could have been really crazy, and I could have gone to the first day of Squatchfest, then gone to Orlando to go to Tom Wood's big birthday party, then go back up to Pittsburgh to speak. But that might have done near killed me. So
that would have been a lot.
It would have been freaking awesome. But
that's true.
Anyway, the big boys were on the first day. We had Dave Smith and Scott Harson and the real big celebrities speaking the first day. I guess the second day it was me, Michael Rectenwald, and Jeff Deist, which I think is also quite a tasty lineup. But
yeah.
But for some reason, everyone wants to see this guy Dave Smith and this guy that only all talks about the bombing and stuff like that. You know, apparently those are hot topics these days, so cannot compete with that. It was a good turnout both nights, but I think probably a better turnout the first night.
Okay.
I mean, I think Dave Smith is kind of like the libertarian Elvis at this point, dude. Like, fucking everybody loves Dave Smith or hates him. I don't know.
He's at the top of the food chain.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he is the reason that I became an anarchist, actually.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well,
he brought me about the libertarian.
Good work, Dave.
Yeah. Dude, this was probably back in 2015, listening to him on Ari Shafir's podcast. I used to just listen to him on the Legion of Skanks, just being a dirty comedian, and then he just really opened my eyes to libertarianism. And so I got to thank Dave Smith for that.
Yeah, he's brought a lot of people in. I don't listen to his show very often myself because I'm not really that interested in current affairs as much as philosophy and economics and stuff like that. But if he runs for president, I definitely endorse him.
Yeah, I think I do too. And the only reason why I wouldn't is like I've been one of those annoying autistic like voluntarists that have been like anti-political for the last few years, that like you don't vote, voting is violence kind of thing. And I am just now on an intellectual journey on whether or not I would vote, which is silly, but
I think Walter Block's argument's pretty good. Like, if you're in a prison and you've got two wardens, one's Officer Goody, he'll beat you once a week, and one's Officer Baddy, he'll beat you every day, and you get to vote between them, you're not really breaking a principle by voting for Officer Goody. The reason, I guess, I don't always vote in the UK, but if I do, it's just by post, because it doesn't take me much, and I will vote for the Scottish Libertarian Party just to register a Libertarian vote, also because I'm a member of the party. I think it's good to support one way or the other, like, as long as it's not like you have to go out to the polls and stand in a queue, stand in a line for like 4 or 5 hours. Like, I don't think that's a good use of your time. You'd be better posting memes for 4 or 5 hours. You probably have more of an effect on the culture.
yeah.
Definitely.
But if it's not a huge inconvenience to you, then I think to support the most libertarian candidate on the ballot is just a way of kind of helping to get the word out.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. And Dave really has brought, I can't think of anybody else besides maybe like Tom Woods and maybe Ron Paul have brought more people into libertarianism. So,
What
I mean, he's doing
God
God.
has done is made people incredibly educated. I think the great thing about Tom Woods is he's got such an archive of shows that most of the objections towards libertarianism have all been addressed on his show at some point or another. So there's an archive there. And I discovered so many libertarian thinkers through his show that have helped me when I'm writing, when I'm doing research and things like that, to know the landscape, to know where you can find the relevant information, because there's no real need to reinvent the wheel here. If you come up against an objection that's been handled before by someone smart, then, you know, use the archive. That's what I'm kind of thinking myself, like, in terms of what niche I could fill that hasn't been addressed already by the movement, so that, you know, you can be useful. But I think, sorry, I did interrupt you. I just think that having a good knowledge of where to find what objection, what answer is pretty useful in itself. Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Tom Woods is definitely like just, dude, he's a treasure trove. He definitely, so listening to Dave, he turned me on to Jason Stapleton and to Tom Woods. And from there, like, Tom Woods definitely helped me, like, nail down anarchism, I guess, and like really brought it about in a palatable, acceptable, like, intellectual way that I was able to like understand more. Like, so Tom Woods is he's the GOAT, man. He's the greatest of all time for sure.
right. Yeah, and obviously Antony Sammeroff would be barely known in the world if not for the great Tom Woods. So he's done a good service to the world.
Where I originally heard you. Yeah, definitely. The first time I heard you was on Tom Woods' show.
And that's true of most of the people who know that I exist. I mean, some people heard me on Lines of Liberty or Pete Quinones or some other obscure show, but most people have familiarized themselves with me through Tom Woods, so he's a great benefactor. I had another thing to say, but I forgot. So
That's okay.
Just that you came from a completely different. You came from a completely different path than me, so that's quite interesting because I didn't come in through people like David Smith and Jason Stapleton. I guess they weren't even around when I came in to the movement. So,
Well,
yeah,
like
I'd love to hear that. Yeah, I'd love to hear that story, man. How did you become a libertarian?
oh no, not this again. I've spoken about it on so many podcasts.
Oh, my bad.
So sorry, hard pass on that question.
Okay, perfect. My other question is, why do you hate tacos so much, Anthony?
Oh man, Now, this is one that I can't get enough of. I think I've been very clear on why I don't like tacos. Well, do you know what? Don't like is strong. I wouldn't say that I mean, I'll eat a taco. And by the way, the corn ones that are crunchy are way better than the fucking flat corn discs or wheat discs. I know this is controversial. I don't understand. I don't understand why anyone would prefer a small wheat or corn-based disc to something crunchy with rice and like bean chili in it. That's like nice and crunchy on the outside and soft on the inside, so that you get that mix of textures and you get the satisfying crunch. But it seems to me that in the USA, most people prefer the soft tacos, which in itself is just insane. But
you're speaking heresy right now, just so you know.
Well, it's fine, but you're weird. Like, why would you prefer this like floppy little disc that's like slightly moist and like flaps out? Like, so I think it's really funny because I'm speaking to you on radio. No one can see me, and yet I've got my hand held in front of me as though I'm demonstrating that I had I'm miming that I have a taco in my hand. So, tacos, first of all, the disc is too small. The disc is like slightly too small. So if you try and hold, there's not enough room for fillings, and if you have fillings, they'll like fall out very plausibly, and that's annoying. It's like, can they not just increase the diameter of it by like half an inch? And then they try and solve this problem by giving you two discs that are slightly overlapping, and that doesn't really. That just means that there's twice as much gluten and glyphosate in the fucking dish. So you don't really need all that fucking Roundup, and you don't need the damage to your digestive system. The wheat that they use is not the same as the one that existed 100 years ago. It's got much more gluten in it because they fucking genetically modified it. And it's really all about the fillings, isn't it? The fucking disc. The disc is just there to hold the filling. Like, it's like filler, and it's not very good filler. And ultimately, tacos are just so fucking inferior to other cuisines. Like, they're not as good as Thai food. They're not as good as Indian food. They're not as good as like Mediterranean food. They're not as good as Greek food. So while tacos are almost invariably disappointing, like sometimes you can go and get a taco and you'll be like, yeah, that was alright, you know, fill the space. But very rarely do you get a taco and you're like, fuck, this is some like amazing shit. But if you go to a really good Thai restaurant, you know, you might have your mind blown. So given that the fillings are inferior, why, you know, the famous book, Why Not Socialism? It's like, I should just transcribe this and make it into a booklet called Why Tacos? Like, why go to a taco when there's a nice fucking noodle bar just next door, and you can get like fucking vermicelli with like tofu, or what, if you don't like tofu, whatever you fucking do like, with some spring onions. I know you don't call them spring onions here, you've got other words for them. It's nice, it's spicy, it makes you feel like why would you settle? Why, like, what is the American fascination with tacos? So I took a long time to explain this because I know that people want the full story, and you're more than welcome to excerpt my rant on why tacos are an inferior food and Americans shouldn't be obsessed with them. Excerpt it, put it on YouTube, circulate it on Twitter, make it viral, and then people will know once and for all what's wrong with tacos, and maybe they will upgrade their palate.
Right now, someone is thinking about starting a taco truck business, and they're just like, you just ruined it.
Well, maybe he saved his life, man. Now you
Oh,
open up a
no.
Thai spot.
A single solitary tear has left a Mexican's eye. And do you know what? The funny thing about this taco thing is, like, every time it comes up, people are like, fucking, oh, you just not tried good tacos. Oh, you should come to the taco place near my house. It will change your mind. I'm like, see, if I was near your house, why the fuck would you take me out for tacos rather than, like, all the other food that I've just said is better than tacos? That's just sadistic. Secondly, you do realize I've been to like fucking 14, 15 states, right? I've tried tacos in a lot of places. In fact, I've been in Mexico for 2 months. Imagine that. I was in Mexico for 2 months and I had tacos there in Mexico. So, yeah, it's not because I've just not tried your super amazing tacos. It's because tacos are an inferior cuisine.
Okay.
Inferior. This is the reason why you got me on the show, isn't it? It was the gotcha interview. It's the one that's gonna get me cancelled.
That's hilarious, man. This is actually our first conversation on Twitter was about tacos.
But do you accept that it is a death? I mean, I don't know what
I would lose my beer cred, man.
This created a big controversy on Twitter when I said that tacos are discs. But they're like, as my friend Spike Cohen said, to drop another name, I mean, the thing is blatantly shaped like a disc. The thing is literally shaped as a disc. Why did everyone object to that? Plus, first of all, referring to tacos as discs is one, astute, well observed, and two, hilarious. Because, and not only hilarious, but it's funny because it's true.
It's true. They're soggy, meaty discs.
I like them.
Me too. I'm a beaner though, and I grew up eating them, so I would lose my beaner card right now if I were to say that tacos are overrated. But
if you're going to put a taco in front of me and the rice is nice and the right consistency, and it's also, do you know what the thing is? Mexican, like, you can have a good Mexican, you can have a nice burrito, but I just think in general it's not that. And like, what is with the refried beans? I mean, come on, like, refried. Like, can you not just give me actual beans? Like, why do you really have to refry them? It's kind of gross. You've got a weird consistency, and it's just like, it looks like dog puke, right? Can anyone see? You're laughing because it's a laugh of recognition that what I say is true.
it is a salty pile of goo on your plate, and then you put a bunch of cheese on it, and then you mix your rice in it, and you use those tortillas to sop it all up with some salsa.
Yeah, but wouldn't you just rather have the actual pinto beans? Or like maybe
I actually like the goo more.
You like the goo more?
Yeah.
Well, you have a right to be wrong. I like beans, I guess, you know. I hear they're a good source of protein, and that certain cultures that eat a lot of beans tend to live longer. There's so I'm pro bean.
Okay.
But I just don't think that Mexican is as good as other cuisines. Specifically tacos, like burritos and enchiladas and whatnot are not as bad as tacos, but they're still not necessarily as good as other cuisines.
Where do you fall on tamales?
You know, I've had tamales before. They're like, I had them in Mexico. I felt they were quite bland. I have to be honest.
Do you know how many Mexicans you're infuriating right now?
I don't know. It depends how big. I don't know how big your show is.
You know what? I don't know how many Mexicans listen to our show either. I think all libertarians are about white. I'm the darkest. It's me and Eric July are the only minorities in the libertarian community.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in California. I actually grew up in Eureka, California on the coast. Humboldt County, the big pot growing central. So, of course,
the best thing about Mexican cuisine, obviously, is guacamole.
Mm-hmm.
And they do have nice salsas as well. It's not all bad. There's some good stuff coming out of there. It's just, I just don't get the taco obsession. Like, it's just.
Well, you're gonna be in LA tomorrow, right?
Oh, that's true. I am going to be in LA. See me.
There's going to be, if you're going to get good tacos, you can find them in LA.
If you're going to get good tacos, and that is a big if. And so is the good tacos part. That's also a big if. You might get acceptable tacos. You might get... Do you know what? I think the taco chat has probably ran its course. I think we can...
Yeah. Okay.
People are going to get frustrated just the fact that the whole show is about tacos.
What are you doing in LA, man?
I'm speaking at something at the Reason Foundation that Angela McCardle kindly invited me to speak at when we were in Florida. I think they had a dropout, but I think the dropout was Michael Bolden from the 10th Amendment Center. So I do think I'm maybe a little bit of a downgrade.
No. Michael Bolden's awesome, though.
Yeah, he's awesome, and he's done a lot more practical stuff to preserve liberty than I have. But then you can get Michael Bolden anytime, whereas I'm only in the USA for a limited period. So get it while it's hot.
Yeah. Dude, you've been here for a minute, huh? How long have you been out here?
How long have I been out here?
Yeah.
Well, I left Scotland in October. I had to get 3.5 weeks in Mexico. Well, it was a minimum of 2 weeks before I got in to the USA because the crazy COVID regulations say you're not allowed to enter the USA directly from the UK, but you are allowed to enter directly from Mexico. I can't see any reason why you'd sooner get COVID in the UK than Mexico, but those are the silly rules, so I had to follow them.
Yeah, if you're going to get sick somewhere, it's going to be in Mexico. It doesn't make any sense.
You're going to fucking drink tequila or get, like, mixed up in all sorts of crazy adventures, drugs, fireworks, hookers. Next thing you know, actually, you're most likely to get COVID at Porkfest. It's official. So they should put New Hampshire under quarantine.
That is interesting. Yeah, you went all over Mexico, and then you ended up getting COVID in Porkfest. That's bizarre.
Well, allegedly, I got...
Allegedly.
Well, I heard Mexico doesn't even have that much COVID right now, with their giving people proper medicine and stuff.
What's proper medicine?
Like they're more open to ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and stuff like that. That's what I've heard. I'm not down there, so.
Well, Mexico's interesting, man. It's a free market down there in a lot of different ways. Like on every single street corner, you're going to find somebody hustling, and they have their own store that's like in their house, which I think is cool. But like also, any drug you're looking for, you just go down to the pharmacy and ask them. You can go get opium right now. Like, Mexico is cool as shit. Like, my aunt would go down to Mexico to get dental work done, and they would pump her full of cocaine instead of Novocaine, like, to numb her face and things. And
yeah,
Mexico's great. I love it. It's closer to Encampusant. There's more freedom in Mexico than there is in America. I'm just throwing that out.
It also depends whereabouts you are in Mexico. Some places will be more... The police will get more involved than others.
Yeah, the cops are crazy too, though. Yeah, so like you just have to have bribe money ready, and you got to have like it's just an interesting place, dude. It's the Wild West.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, my friends, when they would drive through Mexico, they would just have stacks of money ready for when they got pulled over because they're white, and they just like, okay, here's some pesos, and then the cop be like, okay, you can go.
Yeah, it's basically at least they're honest about it. Here, the state tries to hide the fact that they're a bunch of gangsters, but
yeah,
in certain countries, you know what's up. You know, I remember Jeff Berwick talking many years ago, and one of the things he said is, you know, America's thought to be the free country, but there's some places like in Colombia and stuff like that where if you want to start a bar, you just rent a space, buy some bottles of liquor, and start pouring it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, dude. Well, that's what I thought was really cool about Mexico is like, dude, I literally could just be walking down a neighborhood and then there's a lady trying to sell me beer. And I'm like, it's hot. It's a nice day. Sure. I give her a couple pesos. She gives me a Corona and I keep going. You know, it's like, yeah, it is a weird open free market over there. I'm sure if you're like having an actual business, there's a bunch of regulations. I've heard like government sucks everywhere. But like for the individual, there's a lot more freedom.
That should be the tagline of the Reality Stars podcast. Government sucks everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So, Antony, you want to talk about your book? Tony, is there a huge plane flying over?
I was having a little bit of trouble unmuting my mic there. Well, so yeah, and I think it's a thing that Americans don't realize how rich they would be if not for all these government interventions. There's so many layers to, like, even simple things like the hoops that people need to jump through to employ someone, or the regulations that businesses need to follow, because there's an accumulating effect where it's the business that manufactures the product, then it's the owner of the warehouse, then it's the trucking company that gets it to the store, then it's the store. And all of these companies need to comply with these regulations. They need to account for that. It costs them money, and that's reflected in the price of the product at the end of the day when you buy it. So we have like no idea how much less the stuff in the shops would cost if it wasn't for all these regulations. Add to that the fact that all those people who are employed to help businesses conform to regulations, lawyers, accountants, actuaries, blah, 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 all the government bureaucrats, if they weren't doing that, they'd have to get a job doing something productive, which means there'd be more products and services on the market. And by the law of supply and demand, if there's more supply, if there's more stuff, the stuff becomes cheaper. So it's like, then you add all the fucking mandatory employer contributions to insurance, health insurance, which drives the price of health insurance through the roof because it's mandated, and there's a restriction in competition. Like, people just don't realize how rich they would be without all this crap. And that's what really frustrates me. And I also think that libertarians should talk about it more, because people care about stuff like poverty, or at least they claim to. It's not necessarily center the bullseye when we're speaking.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, and it's how do you get that message out to people, and how do you get them to listen? You know, because I mean, people absorb things in little bite-sized information. You know, like people's attention span is like that of a gnat. I mean, even myself, I have ADHD like an insane person, and it's hard to get people to sit down and like actually pay attention to things. They just see that things are expensive, and they see that they want their insurance, right? And they mistake this bureaucratic state as something that's benefiting them and helping them because they want these regulations. Because without them, wouldn't they just sell us poison? And things like that.
People might agree. See, if you explain all that, people might agree and go, yeah, that's terrible. Even if they're liberals and lefties, they might go, yeah, that's terrible. But the thing is, A, they don't usually then embrace the libertarian position, and B, what the fuck can they do about it? Anyway, are they going to go out and vote? It's kind of frustrating when you see that even if you kind of ideologically challenge people and they can take on some of what you say and can see the logic of it, it's like it doesn't really... First of all, they're not going to start raving about it on Facebook, very likely. But even if they did, it's like, what's the end goal here? This is the thing. It's very difficult to change the government, but and people don't, I guess, put two and two together and see, well, here's the great thing about the market. If you don't like the product, you just don't bloody buy it. You buy something else instead. You don't have to convince everyone that you're right, that the product's bad. You don't have to form a focus group or a committee or a think tank or anything. You just don't buy the product. You buy something that you do like. Whereas with the government, we don't really have that option because you've bought it already.
Yeah, people are just so insanely ignorant when it comes to money, and I think that it's on purpose. Like the way that we're indoctrinated in schools and things, it pays for, it benefits them to keep us ignorant. Like I saw an article the other day that was saying, hey, the hidden silver lining to inflation. It says wages rise, and you're like, that's the silver lining? Like, okay. Like, people are so stupid, and people are excited about that now. They're like, okay, well, things are going to get more expensive, but at least my check's going to go up.
Right.
Like, you don't see how that is like, or would you pay more taxes for free health care? You're like, how does that work? People are just so stupid.
Yeah.
I thought you put... sorry. I thought you put it really good when you asked the question of what's the most expensive thing that everyone buys, and it's government. And I thought that was a really good statement.
Yeah. People, you say, like, what's the most expensive thing that you'll ever buy in your life? Most people say a house, but actually, it's government. Most people spend 20 to 25 years working to pay. That's about their taxes.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Yeah, just a bureaucratic state. And like you said, we're paying these bureaucrats to not do something productive. They're just a parasitic class. They literally get, and then it's funny, they get taxed on their money that was taxed. It's nutty, man. It doesn't make any sense.
Nutty as a granola bar.
Well, and also it's counterproductive in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of so many people that would go in and actually like have a passion to make the world better in some way, and they go into some government program where their efforts and energies are just put in this like cul-de-sac that doesn't go anywhere. And I think that's also something we should talk about too. It's not just like we're being taxed, but we're paying for something that's actually like we're paying for our own poison.
Yeah, there's a huge intellectual drain of people that just go into government and then just nothing. Like, what do they do? It's a giant brain drain, I guess, huh? People that should be in the public sector or in the private sector end up in the public sector.
You think how much stuff would be producing that we're not. And it's hard to get this point across to people, I suppose, like that it's a double-edged sword. But the thing is, as people become more wealthy, they become more tolerant for a greater percentage of their income to be taxed. So when everyone was impoverished, a 20% tax would be the difference between their children starving or not. So they absolutely would not accept that. But now that people can afford it, they'll accept taxes, when you probably add everything in, if you've got decent income, you're probably paying more than 50% of what you earn in tax when you count them all up, including the sales tax and everything. But
yeah, it's true.
But people are tolerant for it. So now that the government has those resources, the sensible thing for the government to do from the government's position is to use those accumulated resources to employ as many people as possible, because anyone who's employed by the government is almost certainly going to be in favor of the institution of government.
Yeah, no, 100% for sure. And yeah, so I mean, I think about that too, just the indoctrination that we get where we send all of our kids to public schools and all of the teachers are they're public servants, right? They're all paid off the public dollar. And so why would they ever teach kids about, the free market or small government or, any of those different things? Like all of those, like we will automatically be kind of brainwashed into government is good because look at this, and our teachers are going to teach us that. And I grew up poor, like real poor. So I grew up like on the welfare system. I grew up eating like, government cheese. That's what we called it. They give us blocks of Velveeta and it says government cheese on it. It's disgusting. And it's kind of good too, actually. But so you get indoctrinated, right? And so it's like it's in their favor actually to indoctrinate you. And I remember they would actually fight. Like when my mom worked her ass off. She was a single mom. And she went to college and she got a teaching credential, actually. So then she went and became a teacher and she fought to get off of welfare and they fought her. They didn't want her to get off. They wanted to keep her on different programs because like also the more people that they have in the program, that's job security. That is like they need you to be poor. They need you to need them. It's this weird incentivization, like, it's gross.
Yeah, it's really weird because the end of poverty is the end of the state.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can afford to send our kids to private schools, so we don't need the state for that. Oh, we can afford our own healthcare, so we don't need the state for that. No one's going to go into the military. Well, maybe some people will, but without the bribe of being like, hey, we'll give you a free education if you come to the military. I'm sorry, I can afford my own education. I don't need to risk my life just so that I can get, they bribe people. Crime will go down.
That are self-reliant. Yeah, people that are self-reliant are hard to control, right? Because we don't need you. We can walk away.
I heard the argument that if you get a public... I was going to say, like, I heard the argument that if you get a government paycheck, you shouldn't be allowed to vote just for a conflict of interest. Like, that's all. Vote from one.
Yeah, that much to me is obvious. Like, that's an obvious conflict of interest. If you're not a net, but I mean, I don't think anyone should really be voting. They always set up this thing where, if you're not for democracy, then you must be for dictatorship. But in the real world, the choice isn't between democracy and dictatorship. The choice is between something being decided democratically or being left to the market. That's the real alternative. So it's weird. But yeah, I mean, sorry, you were saying about the education system. It's so far gone. Most people's narrative is, we had this, the Charles Dickens books during the Industrial Revolution where, everyone was working in a factory and was poor, and their story is the government came in and regulated that out of existence. Well, I mean, come on. The government doesn't have a magic wand. The reason that system came to an end is because people became more wealthy because of all the productivity from the machines. So it was easier to afford to pay people a dignified wage. And then people got so rich that they didn't have to send their kids to work in factories because they could earn enough money themselves working.
Yeah.
That they could send, that they had so much overplus of money they could send their kids to school. So we're told that government solved those problems when really it was capitalism.
Dude, 100%, 100%. I hear that all the time from like left-leaning people that will try to say that it was the unions and it was the government that ended child labor and all these different things. And it was like, no, I mean, because what happens right now if I went to like Myanmar and I passed a law that said there's no child labor now? People are either going to starve to death or those kids are going to be sex trafficked. Like, we haven't solved the underlying issue, which is the poverty.
Yeah, which is the low marginal productivity of labour. And people don't realise how hard it is to start a business in many of these poor countries like Myanmar. I don't know if Myanmar specifically, but in some countries it could take 1 to 3 years to get a license to open up a business, or if you do open up a business, you never know if the cops are going to come in and shut it down. So if these countries were more free market, then more businesses would set up there and the wages would go up a lot quicker because of the competition of having more employers. If there's a small number of employers, then people need to work on whatever conditions that they can get, because that, you know, is basic supply and demand. There's not very many jobs to go around because there's a limited number of employers and they have to accept worse conditions. So even we're told that, oh, it's the excess of capitalism creating poor conditions in third world countries, whereas actually it's the absence of a free market, it's the absence of capitalism which is sustaining the poverty there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can give you an example. I have a friend that he's a pastor and he lives in Tanzania, and he was telling me that like so what he's trying to do is he's trying to start businesses with the people there. Like, so there's like a lot of like single mothers. So he started like a coffee roasting company down there and put all these ladies to work, and now they're working and running the business and they're making a profit and things. But he's saying like the hoops that they have to jump through are so insane. Like the business regulations and the taxes are so high. And he's an interesting cat. He's actually a libertarian too. He came over here last year and we had a conversation and we were discussing different ways that like agorism is actually saving lives over there, where he's like just using the black market. He's like, yeah, we're just, you know, we started the first couple businesses legitly, and like then we realized we literally could not make a profit doing it. We would actually lose money. So we're just doing everything we can. He goes like, yep, this is all just shout out to Konkin. We're going to make this happen.
Yeah, it's funny because Tanzania is one of the less bad African nations. They've had quite a lot of growth. You know, countries like Ghana, Botswana, even, you know, Ethiopia had periodic famines right up until the 90s. And we've not heard of a famine in Ethiopia in the last 30 years because they abandoned socialism and they became more free market. So Tanzania is like, that's one of the least worst African countries. Most places it's worse than there. It's quite interesting because you go, what will it take to make people see that markets enrich the poor? Like you had Chile, which is the least poor country in South America because they went more free market. You have Estonia, which is the least impoverished country of the former Soviet bloc colonies because they went more free market. Like, you have the African examples of, like, say, Ghana and Botswana that are more free market than the rest of our Africa, and they've done better. Obviously, Singapore and Hong Kong were as impoverished as Africa was, and in 30 years became extraordinarily wealthy because they became two of the most free market countries in the world. And you look at that and go, what is it going to take? What is it going to take for people to see that this is an obvious trend?
So do you think that there's a conspiracy to keep that, like, or is this just like communist indoctrination?
Well, I don't know. I thought that most of what we see going on in the world is easily explainable by economic incentives. Like, government does more or less what it's economically incentivized to do, which is tax as much as people are willing to tolerate and use that money to buy allies, which is, the more people they put in the public sector, or the more people they have on welfare, or the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they can print money to spend money to bribe people and kick the can down the road. That is what governments are economically incentivized to do anyway. So I thought that explained most of what goes on in the world. However, after this corona bullshit of the last 16 months, I'm more open to the idea of a globally orchestrated conspiracy.
Yeah, man, it's just funny how they all just fell in line, and it went against all of what would be, you'd think, their best interests, as far as like, but it really wasn't, right? It was just against the people's best interests. Like, I have friends that their business is closed and they'll never open again.
Yes,
and
I've got
and
friends
it was
that had his life fucking ruined by all this shit. He had all these business. He's been made insolvent.
It's a really fucked up thing, man. And so it was artificially done. Everyone was literally forced to close their businesses, and then the government comes in and swoops in and says, "Hey, we'll give you checks." And there's no way you can convince me that this wasn't done on purpose to just make more people more desperate and more needy and more dependent on government. That's what they wanted and what they needed.
But do they want, look, they must know that there's not an infinite amount of money they can print before the money becomes toilet paper. So what, do they want to crash the global economy?
Yes, they do. I really think they do. I mean, that's really what the Great Reset is all about, right? When you listen to that old, like, dollar store version of Dr. Evil and Klaus Schwab, I really do think that that's what they want to do. They're trying to crash this global economy. They're trying to wreck it completely so that they can, like, institute what? The digidollar? I mean, that's what they have been working on and talking about for a long time.
Well, why do they talk about it publicly then?
It's this weird thing where they don't hide things, man. They put it out there. Like, if you pay attention to the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab is telling you exactly what he's going to do. Like, look into what the heck is it called? Something 2030. What am I talking? Oh, the 2030 agenda or whatever. You can look that up right now, and he'll tell you. Like, he has PowerPoints. He's like, okay, then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. And you're like, holy shit! Why does no one pay attention to this? Because they're, like, watching porn. They're on Pornhub and, like, doing all kinds of dumb things. Like, people are just so stupid. They're watching, like, I don't know, like America's Top Model or something on television, and just
they have got the right to do that. That's fine. It's just the fact that they want to take us with them, and it's like, where do we go? I wish that I could just. You don't realize what you take for granted. Like, I would have liked to just go home for 2 weeks, right? But that's not an option, because to go home for 2 weeks, I might need to do some quarantine, and then to get back into the USA, I need to go to Mexico or Costa Rica for 2 weeks just to get back in. So it's like they made everything so bloody complicated and unnecessarily frustrating.
Well,
India still won't let in tourists. Bali still won't let in tourists. These are, like, poor countries that need tourist dollars, and people are going to starve and have starved because of it. Thailand, you need to get the shot to go in. It's like, I can't.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that people would accept the government sacrificing 16 months of their lives, like, and accept it with a smile on their face. And some people are calling for more of it. It's almost incomprehensible.
I really thought that America had more fight in it. until 2020, and it completely just ruined any hopes that I had for the states, man. I thought that we had a lot more backbone, you know. And
well, the question is, where does have a backbone? Like, where is there to go?
I think like that's the shittiest part about this whole thing. Is like, well, one of the shittiest parts is just we're losing the ability to travel. Like, if you're rich enough, like you can go in quarantine for 2 weeks after you go somewhere. But for most people, that just eliminates that.
No, it's not possible. It's not realistic for people.
No, it's not. People.
No, and it's on purpose too. Now they're controlling movement. You know, they're controlling movement of the population. Like, I see that as more. And call me a conspiracy theorist, but I think that all of that it's
You're
about power and control.
Yeah.
But dude, that's how I see it, man. I see patterns, and I'm like, I'm noticing that. You know, I mean, I notice things like this, like so countries like Tanzania, actually, the president there, when the Rona stuff was rolling out, they sent him some tests and shit, and they were trying to get him to get on board with all the lockdowns and all the, you know, all that kind of crap. He was the guy that started, like, he swabbed a goat, and he swabbed a fruit, and he swabbed all this crazy shit, and he sent it to him, and they said, yep, it's positive, and he goes, oh, you guys are full of shit.
Right. Then, okay.
And then they killed him, dude. Then he's dead.
He's dead now.
He's dead. And I'm like, that's not a coincidence. They just killed the president of Haiti. You know, they just said it was an American citizen that did it. Like, tell me he's not in the CIA. Like, you know, because like Haiti has been the untouched place. Like, I was watching a Vice, a little Vice documentary thing about Haiti, and like people are still partying and dancing and have a good time. They're like, yeah. He goes, yeah, I don't know why, but the coronavirus, it just passed Haiti. Yeah, nobody has it here. Like, maybe like 5 people had it or something. And people aren't wearing masks, you know. And so what do they have to do? They had to smoke him, dude. They killed him. And then I think about, too, the president of Belarus, you remember, or whatever, pseudo-dictator, whatever the hell he is. He was offered like $1 billion to get on board with the corona stuff, and he said no. And then all of a sudden there's this groundswell around that Belachenko woman, and they're trying to say, like, she's the rightful president, you know, and I'm like, CIA coup. You know, like, I just see if you're not falling in line, if you're not doing what they say, then they're just taking people out, man, and they're being more blatant about it.
So thank you for filling me with hope for the future. You're a good egg. The remaining question is, like, what can we do? Like, yeah, like, I mean, you're just basically saying, well, we're screwed because if anyone good gets them, they're basically off them. So, you know, that's the bottom line, according to what you're saying.
So what do we do about it? You know, because man, I want the white pill. I want us to, you know, and I really think that people are sick and tired of it, dude. They're over it. I can tell you that, like, in Oregon here now, finally, dude, when was that? Like last Wednesday? We just got
something like that.
They let us, and now people are walking in to stores without masks, finally, for the first time. And you know what? I don't think that these people are going to put them back on. I think they're finally sick of it. Half of them still will, because this is a very progressive state, but the rest of the state is not.
Well, I mean, I just, like, most people just seem to go along to get along. It seems like, I mean, could you really believe that people would allow this to go on for 16 months? Like, so it's kind of like, I don't know. It's just revealed how fragile a liberal order is. You know, we had no idea how compliant people were until it was tested. I mean, would you have thought that people would allow these things to go on for 16 months before this?
No, not at all, man.
If
not at all.
Voted it out to you, you know, we never realized how bad it was.
I mean, and even to their own detriment, though, like people that were just closing their business down, knowing that they weren't going to be able to pay, their.
And it's like the artists, musicians, like stand-up comics, actors, theater performers. These people should have been out in force saying, "You're killing us here," but they were sucking the dick for the regime.
Yeah, man. It was just unfortunate too. Like the small businesses that stayed open were just vilified and attacked. Because there were some businesses that just said, "Fuck you, we're staying open." Especially in the middle of the country. Like in the middle of the country, they were like, or in the middle of like Oregon, actually, in the middle of our state. Like most of those people, like Oregon. Most of it, like those little tiny towns, have a population of 500 people. They all know each other. They're not scared of this bullshit. They don't watch CNN. They probably watch too much Fox News, but they weren't playing with that shit. But the couple of weirdos would rat them out. They would get vilified and attacked, and then they had like fines out the ass, like $100,000 fines.
I think that's the thing, is that we're all so disconnected that's why it was able to happen. That, it's like, okay, like you could stand up and open up your business, but then what do you do? Like when no one goes to it, or when people shut it down. And then we had riots here.
Oh, dude, Portland was crazy, dude. Yeah, Portland is lost, dude. I don't even know. Like Portland's gone. It could get hit by an asteroid tomorrow, and I'd be okay with it. It's a beautiful place, and Portland was wonderful, but good Lord, man.
So how long do you usually go in this show?
We go anywhere from 1 to 2 hours generally, but like we're totally on your schedule, man.
All right, well, good, because my schedule says I've got another appointment coming up. But
okay.
It's really, really fun.
Yeah, man.
So I guess if those of you who've not heard me that much before, or have heard me that much before, were interested in my whole bit about how much richer society would be if it wasn't for state interventions, you should get a copy of my book, Universal Basic Income, For and Against, because I talk a lot about how the government impoverishes people, and how if you just got the government out of the way, people would be so rich that you wouldn't even need a universal basic income in that book. So you should buy it.
Hell yeah. Is there a way that you want them to buy it? Like, do you get more money if they buy it a certain way, like off your website as opposed to Amazon? Or
most people just get it on Amazon, but if you want your copy signed, then you have to message me personally. I can post it out, but I'll have to charge you a little bit more money for that, obviously, because it's quite time consuming.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will definitely leave a link for the Amazon, and I'll leave a link for your website and your Twitter, all that stuff in the show notes. And Antony, dude, this was a blast. We really appreciate you, and thanks for coming on, man.
I had lots of fun as well, and I like talking about tacos and is it a conspiracy, and it's a shame when you speak about these things, because especially when I'm talking about how rich people would be if it wasn't for government intervention in the economy. Do you think this fucked up planet could be a bloody paradise if people just knew the truth? And it's a shame. But
we could get more tacos.
Yeah, just think about the crazy toppings that they would create for tacos in a free market, and they'd probably open up somewhere where the disc is slightly greater in diameter as well, so that even I would be less inclined to complain about them.
The free market might fix the taco for Antony Sammeroff. We need that. All right.
Yeah. If that's not a reason for the abolition of government, I don't know what is.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
All right.
Catch
Thanks,
you later.
man.
Thank you.